Here in Hollywood, motion picture theater is an institution constructed with such unique design so as to make each a monument.
But whether or not you've ever visited Hollywood, we're going to take you behind the scenes for what should prove an unusual experience.
Welcome to Hollywood, a place of magic and mystery. Growing up in Los Angeles, I've been surrounded by movie culture, cinemas, and screen-famous landmarks my entire life. Throughout my life, I have noticed ancient Egyptian imagery in many Hollywood locations. I never thought much of why Hollywood seemed to be so interested in ancient Egypt, especially early Hollywood. Iconic landmarks such as Grauman's Egyptian Theater or the Hollywood Masonic Temple that now hosts Jimmy Kimmel Live, two influential places that scream of Egyptian themes. But after my recent video on the Krotona Society in the Hollywood Hills and discovering old photos of ceremonies held there that also contained Egyptian symbols and imagery, I began to think, why was early Hollywood so obsessed with these symbols? Could these structures and theaters be part of something larger, some type of shared secret wisdom within Hollywood? Or could it just be what the popular narrative says, an obsession with Egyptomania in the 1920s because of events such as the discovery of King Tut's tomb? Today I will visit some of the sites that I believe show some of the strongest of this imagery, and I will dive into the history of how these structures were built, who built them, and why they were built the way they were. Welcome back to Waste Media. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified every time I post. This is the Grauman's Egyptian Theater, built in 1922. It was the site of the first ever film premiere. The Egyptian Theater was the brainchild of Sid Grauman, the famous showman and entrepreneur, and Charles E. Toberman, a real estate developer known as the father of Hollywood. Toberman enlisted the architectural firm Meyer and Haller to design the Egyptian theater. This firm was also responsible for designing the famous Chinese theater. The Egyptian theater was completed in just 18 months, at the then staggering cost of $800,000, equivalent to over $15 million today. The design of the Egyptian was revolutionary at the time. It featured massive pillars, topped with papyrus leaves, hieroglyphs, and depictions of pharaohs and pyramids. Just a month after the theater opened, on November 4th, 1922, King Tut's tomb was discovered, which launched a worldwide fascination with all things Egyptian. Grauman himself played up the Egyptian mystique of the theater, and would hire Bedouin guards to patrol the rooftops, and live camels to roam the courtyard for special events. By the 1990s, the Egyptian theater had fallen into disrepair, but in 1996 it was rescued by the American Cinematheque and restored. It was later purchased by Netflix in 2020. How much of the Egyptian's theater design was purely decorative, and how much was influenced by deeper esoteric connections? Charles E. Toberman, the real estate mogul behind its creation, was a Freemason, as were many influential figures in early Hollywood. Given the extensive use of Egyptian symbols in Masonic rituals and teachings, was the Egyptian theater more than just a temple to film? Could it have also been a temple to hidden knowledge? It's interesting to note that the discovery of King Tut's tomb, which launched Egyptomania into the mainstream, did not occur until only 1 month after the theater opened, which means the plan to make an Egyptian-styled theater was thought of before the discovery, and was not directly a product of post-King Tut Egyptian fascination. Egyptomania was a fascination with all things ancient Egypt that became very popular in the 1920s. Another structure that reveals Hollywood's fascination with Egypt and its deeper Masonic ties is the Hollywood Masonic Temple, now known as the El Capitan Entertainment Center. Built in 1921, this massive structure was commissioned by the Freemasons of Hollywood, Lodge number 355. It was designed by John C. Austin, a prolific architect who was also a 32nd degree Freemason. John C. Austin was one of the most influential architects in Los Angeles history. In addition to the Hollywood Masonic Temple, Austin co-designed the Griffith Observatory and was also responsible for the design of Los Angeles City Hall and the Shrine Auditorium. As a 32nd degree Freemason, John C. Austin occupied one of the highest attainable ranks in the Scottish Rite branch of Freemasonry. The 32nd degree known as the Master of the Royal Secret. It is the culmination of a Mason's journey through the Scottish Rite. It is almost as high as you are able to get in the ladder. The Hollywood Masonic Temple was a symbol of the growing influence that Freemasonry had in Hollywood. Many of the early film industry's biggest names, including Cecil B. DeMille and D.W. Griffith, were Freemasons. The temple became a hub for Hollywood elite gatherings. This building also notably had tons of ancient Egyptian imagery. By the 1980s, declining Masonic membership forced the lodge to sell the building. It was later acquired by the Walt Disney Company and repurposed into a theater and production space. Since 2003, it has been the home of Jimmy Kimmel Live, though remnants of its Masonic past still linger in the stone-carved inscriptions and the Grand Ceremonial Hall. Egyptomania during the 1920s was not just an artistic or cultural fad. It was part of a deeper philosophical and mystical movement that had been developing in the West for centuries. The Theosophical Society, founded by Helena Blavatsky in the 19th century, promoted the idea that Egypt was the true cradle of esoteric wisdom. The belief in an occult revival coincided with the rise of Hollywood's Masonic elite, many of whom saw their work in cinema as an extension of this ancient tradition, illuminating the masses through hidden knowledge and grand spectacle. At this time, there was also a Theosophical Society that would turn Beechwood Canyon into its home, building dozens of structures within that area for their followers. This society was named Krotona, and I made a video about this society. It's on my channel, and I will put the link in the bio here. Further evidence of Hollywood's deeper ties to Masonry and ancient Egyptian thought can be found in the prominence of Masonic institutions in Los Angeles, such as the Shrine Auditorium, headquarters of the Al-Malaika Shriners. The Shriners, an extension of Freemasonry, incorporate Islamic and Egyptian symbolism into their rites, further connecting the entertainment capital of the world with a long-standing tradition of mysticism and secret knowledge. But why does Freemasonry use so many Egyptian symbols? Well, there's a couple different possible reasons. Freemasonry traces its philosophical and symbolic lineage to ancient civilizations that were believed to possess profound esoteric wisdom. Ancient Egypt, with its grand temples, hieroglyphic writing, and sophisticated understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and architecture, was seen as the origin of sacred knowledge. There is also the influence of Hermeticism. The Hermetic tradition, based on the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, a Greco-Egyptian blend of the Egyptian god Thoth and the Greek god Hermes, was central to Renaissance mysticism and heavily influenced Freemasonry. Hermetic texts, particularly the Emerald Tablet, emphasize the phrase, "as above, so below," which mirrors Masonic beliefs about the balance between the material and spiritual worlds. The Hermetic tradition drew heavily from Egyptian theology and was incorporated into Masonic philosophy. There are many other explanations for why Freemasonry and ancient Egyptian symbolism is so intertwined, but that requires a whole other video on its own. This is the site of the first ever film premiere. We may not know why these structures were truly built, but we do know that in the early days of Hollywood, the film medium was truly magical. Maybe the new magic of the 20th century was the magic of the moving image, the motion picture, a new way of storytelling, and maybe the entire idea of Hollywood itself was one massive temple and institute to further explore this new form of technology that seemed like magic at the time, and in many ways still is magical. Was it just Egyptomania, caused by the discovery of Egyptian tombs and a public fascination with ancient Egypt? Or was it something deeper, something that we may never know? I'll let you decide. Thanks for watching, and remember to check out the Patreon for all types of exclusive stories and perks. I really appreciate the support. See you guys next time.